when people are scrolling through Jägermeister's Instagram, I want them to see these shoes and just have absolutely no idea where they came from. I want them to question, did they actually collab with Jordan brand to make a giveaway pair? Or how were these done? These look like they came from a factory. These don't look painted. I need to know more about these. Hey, what's going on guys? Dillon DeJesus here. Thank you so much for joining us for another video. So today, if you didn't know, is actually National Sneaker Day, and I've teamed up with the brand Jägermeister here to design a pair of Jordan 1's that we're gonna be giving away in one lucky winner's size. Now I figured we could break down how I actually went about designing this pair. So starting things off, we've got one of your triple white Jordan 1's, and you can never go wrong with one of these. When I'm in the beginning stages of the design process for a theme like this, I like to just quickly put together as many mock-ups as possible, test out different color combinations, and sometimes even making bad mock-ups can help me, because then I can start to see, here's why I don't like something like that. Figuring out what I do like is figuring out what I don't like. The first thing that I wanted to do on these was this oversized text effect background, and this is something you guys have definitely seen me do before, but I noticed it on a lot of Jaeger's packaging and within their branding that this angled text is something they do a lot of. For a project like this, as an artist, you want to take it as a chance to really show off a wide array of your capabilities. So you want to show off your designing and layout skills, something like how I did this text trick on here. You want to show off your attention to detail when it comes to really nailing their logo. You want to show off how can you insert some of your own signature style. That's how I tried to add a little bit of that airbrushing, that aquatic pattern. That's something that I like to do on almost all of my shoes. And I think that this is actually the hardest part about really nailing this whole text trick, is making sure that you've selected the perfect two colors to do so for your text and for your background. Generally speaking, I think you want this effect to be a little bit more subtle, so I'm using something like darker green and lighter green in this case. I'm not doing this effect with two incredibly contrasting colors. So if I accidentally made my darker green for the text too dark, it's just gonna stand out much more than I want it to. Now, in order to achieve this, I'm gonna cut out and weed a bunch of their word mark design, and we're gonna lay that right on top of our darker green background. Then we can lay down some of that signature Jaeger herbal green right on top. When you start working with other clients or even potentially brands, there's gonna start to be more creative minds providing input for the design itself. And I think that it's really important to make sure that you always stay true to yourself. And what I mean by that is you wanna make sure that you're always injecting a little bit of you into everything that you do. You want to have a little bit of your own flavor that you can add to every pair, because at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you remain proud to put your name and your signature or your logo or your stamp or anything that represents you onto the design. When I found out that I was going to be doing Jordan 1's for this design, I originally wanted to take the logo, slap it right on the outsides of the shoes, and just make it as big as possible so that I had plenty of room to work with. But after going back and forth with the brand a little bit, we ultimately decided that we didn't want it to be as much of a focal point, so placing it on the back heels I think ultimately led to a much cleaner design overall, even if it was way harder to execute artistically. Sometimes you gotta be up for the challenge. Once we peeled back all of that lettering, it was time for the main event on this shoe, trying to fit their iconic logo in this incredibly small spot on the back heels. This thing was an absolute nightmare to try and turn into a vinyl stencil. We're only talking about 1.25 inches or so worth of height here, and there was just so much detail and intricacy packed in. Honestly, I tried to just get it as close as possible with the vinyl, and I knew there would be quite a few touch-ups to do after. No joke, given its scale, this is probably the most intricate stencil I've ever laid down. I think it took me close to 5 hours just to get it cut right. When it ultimately hit me that I wasn't going to be able to cut this stencil as perfectly as I would have liked, I knew that I was basically going to have to give myself some grace along the way. You're essentially fighting a losing battle here trying to cut something at this scale. So just try to get it as close as you can and then spend the time on the touch-ups. Thankfully, it's paint at the end of the day, so you can touch things up. It's okay to go over stuff if you have to, just to get it up to your liking in the end. After painting in most of of the colors for the background, I actually noticed once taking a closer look at their official logo again, that it has this almost tarnished or weather type look to it, really in some of those golds and beiges. So I took this texture streak stencil that I have and just tried to paint some of that in too. I just want my logo to look as close to theirs as possible, almost like you somehow stamped it right onto the shoes. Once you peel all that stencil and tape back, you're really just hoping for the best, hoping you have a good foundation with minimal touch-ups to do. Now that we're done with the hard parts of the design, we're left with the guts of our shoes. So I'm going to be doing our tongue and sock liner in that same herbal green, and then we're left with the collar and the toe box panel, in which I'm going to be doing those in what Jaeger calls culture orange. As soon as I realized I was gonna have the chance to paint their main logo somewhere on the shoes, I was instantly transported back to that episode of Ink Master where all of the participants had to tattoo a micro version of this logo on somebody.
The Jägermeister logo.
There's nothing better to test precision than logos. It tests everything in your arsenal, straight lines, perfect circles.
And so many of them struggled with it because there's so many complex details in here. First off, it was hard to tattoo a perfect circle they all mentioned at that scale. It's really hard to make sure that you have all of these incredibly thin lines done in a straight fashion, and just so many of them struggled with it. And it's such a recognizable logo that you have to make sure you nail it just right. Now there's one spot left on these where I can still add a touch of color, and that's going to be the Jumpman logo on our tongue tags, and I'm going to do that in this neon green that they use across some of their branding as well. Alright, I am having way too much fun with this slider that I bought just to capture one shot sometimes. So for example, right here I have the two shoes, I have the Jaeger bottle, I'm trying to do a nice zoom in for the final shot. And I'm just trying to dial in the lighting and all the different things of that nature here, and just try to make it look as professional as possible despite having no idea what I'm doing. Try to figure it out, watch YouTube videos. There's a guy, Daniel Shifter, who does like incredible product photography, videography, and stuff like that I've loved to watch him over the years on stuff like this. I'm trying to make one of the shoes float. No idea how I'm gonna Photoshop out that shoestring in the video, but we're gonna give it a try regardless. Once I had the final design locked in, I could already start to envision how I wanted the final reveal to look like. I knew that I wanted this really dark, moody background. I wanted to have a Jaeger bottle that I could pair next to the shoes. I wanted to have smoke or fog in the background to just also go with the mood and the atmosphere. And once you have that vision so clear in your head, you just need to execute along the way. Once you already know where you're going with the design and you've done stuff like this before, it's really just about sitting down, locking in, and executing from there. So if you're interested in winning a pair of these that we'll be custom making in your size, make sure you head over to our Instagram. There's going to be a new collab reel that was just posted between us and Jägermeister USA. Follow all of the details right there in order to participate. Good luck to everybody, and I want to say thank you guys so much for tuning in for yet another video. We had a couple months off and it feels so good to be back. So please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Drop a like, and now everybody get out there and just create.